About 4.5 years ago, Anne Katz from Arts Wisconsin and I sat down over coffee and talked about the creative economy. And we were brainstorming, and as brainstorms go, things come of it. And so we are sitting here in Sheboygan at WSCS, thank you very much, to talk about Creative Economy Week Year 4. And we're very excited about that. We have, in 3 of our magazines, and in May, we have highlighted the creative economy. Many of you have this magazine. We highlighted museums this year, art centers previously, and murals the year before that. And you know, things evolve, and the Creative Economy Week is becoming a thing now. There are people that actually do programming around it, and it's been very exciting. Our partnership is not an accident. The creative economy is important to municipalities.
And we appreciate that very much.
And so do we, and we appreciate this partnership. And we're here today to talk about a partnership between the John Michael Kohler Arts Center and the City of Sheboygan. We have as guests today Chad Pelishek from the City of Sheboygan, the Development Director, and Anne Brusky, the, what is your title? Curator for Public Programs.
Correct.
I love that.
That's
so you are the
job.
person out and about.
Yeah.
Anne Brusky from the MKAC, is that it?
Yep,
Okay.
you got it.
That's the acronym. So Anne, take it away. Tell us a little bit about the creative economy and its importance to Wisconsin's economy.
Well, it is Wisconsin's economy, I guess I'll say that.
Yeah.
Of course, I have to say that thank you to the League for being this great partner over the last 10 years, because we started out over 10 years ago with the Arts in the Community Awards, which is all about recognizing civic champions, non-arts people, but I shouldn't really do that because everyone's in the arts, non-arts people who are championing the arts as a way to economic, educational, and civic success. So that's how we started. As Gail said, we sat down, we met for coffee, as we did frequently, and said, how can we really support this idea of the creative economy? And what is that anyway? So Creative Economy Week is really promotional ideas, a lot of social media, different communities do different have different ways of supporting it and promoting it, and so as Gail said, we just keep building on it. To summarize very briefly, the creative economy is the intersection of creative people, so people who make their living in an arts-related way. That could be everything from nonprofit organizations, people in the media, design, architecture. There's a wide range of creative professions. The creative businesses that support those people, and again, nonprofit organizations, different kinds of commercial businesses, and creative communities or creative states or creative countries. You put those all together in a very a fluid sort of galaxy, and that's the creative economy. Really, what we can say about the creative economy is that it's the 21st century economy based on creativity, imagination, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And so while we know that Wisconsin will continue to be a manufacturing and agricultural state, even those industries must be creative in order to stay relevant and active. And so the creative economy is a growing part of our economy in that there are more people who are small business owners. The arts organizations that are producing programs like the John Michael Kohler Art Center are becoming more entrenched or embedded, I would say that's a better word, in community development, community engagement. Quality of life is an issue in economic development, as Chad can tell you, and all of that together is the creative economy. So Creative Economy Week is a great way to celebrate that. Arts Wisconsin, as the state's community cultural development organization, is helping move that forward. Again, we love the partnership with the League and keep thinking of ways to celebrate the creative economy. But really, all of us are celebrating this because it's really all about people who care about Wisconsin's future and how to make this a good place for everyone. So that's a very brief introduction, and now we're excited that we get to hear specific stories about the creative economy in the public and private realm from Chad and Anne.
Here in Sheboygan, you guys have a partnership that goes back years. Tell us about some of the projects that you've done together and what you've learned about that and its impact on the community, both as local government and as a key cultural asset, as Chad has here in his
What I would say is that our relationship with the John Michael Kohler Arts Center, has never been better. We I'll be honest, I came to Sheboygan in 2008, and at that time, the Arts Center did not, I wouldn't say they really played an active role in placemaking as it happens in the downtown or in our community. You know, at that time, a lot of what was, in my opinion, a lot was happening behind the walls of the John Michael Kohler Art Center within their own confines. There was a number of initiatives that were tried to push forward that never really went anywhere. So, you know, it was really about trying to get them to think differently and getting city leaders to think differently as to how we embrace arts as it's kind of becoming the fabric of our community and becoming who we are and how we, you know, really try to energize underutilized areas. So I think really the first project was known as Sidewalk Stories, and it was at the General King Park. So it's a park on Lake Michigan that the city was reconstructing, putting up a new park shelter. And at that time, the Art Center staff came to us and said they had this idea through their Connecting Communities program, which Anne can talk about that in more detail, but really about how to engage the arts in the reconstruction of this park shelter. So I remember specifically saying to our contractor at the time, you know, you're going to build this building, but you're also going to be stamping sidewalk stories into the concrete with artists and all of those people as you're building this thing. And that's really, you know, what has really led to this relationship. So as we look at the first program, the first, you know, placemaking, it was really that project in 2008. And I'll let Anne just talk a little bit about the Sidewalk Stories program.
Sure. So the John Michael Kohler Art Center, our mission is to generate a creative exchange between artists and the public. And our values are that the arts can transform lives and strengthen communities and make healthy communities. And connecting communities, as you were talking about, has been going on for many, many years, and we have 16 community partners that we work with. And we've done a variety of projects, but with Anne Wallace, the artist with Sidewalk Stories, she worked with professional oral historians and brought them in to train the community to go and get these stories as well from our community and hear the stories within our community. And then we would take excerpts of that and stamp them. And so that's where Chad answered a phone call.
And said, she doesn't regret, I'm sure.
He's learned when our numbers pop up to take a breath. And we say, we have an idea. And we had an idea. And that's when the whole thing came about. And with everything happening at General King Park, it was this great moment to bring everything together. It was also, I would say, you know, with you taking that phone call, it's huge. It's huge from the Art Center with facilitating this project with this artist, but then the community involvement was huge. They were there with everything. They were there helping doing the stamping and learning from the architects and all the professionals involved, and vice versa. Everybody got to know the community that way. So all those stories were heard, so you can walk along the path now. And if I'm correct, the architects even saw what we were trying to do and thought, well, let's make this more of a path. So you can walk along that path now and see these excerpts of stories along the lake. So
for those naysayers who say art doesn't matter, and you could have built the building without the sidewalk art, without the stories. What did that add, and what do you say to those people who may not believe that art is important to a community?
I think that early on, people had that philosophy. You know, we're in this now 10 years, so we've got a little bit of history, but you know, there is obviously always the naysayers there, and it's really just, you know, building it and hoping that at some stage they'll see the positive piece of it. And I think that's where we're at now.
It's not as bad as they thought it was going to be.
Right.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's where we really have a, you know, where the partnership between the city and the Arts Center has really flourished, is the fact that, you know, they come up with ideas, and some of them might be off the wall, some of them might be good. I might have to say yay or
Some
nay,
might
or,
be
you know,
on the
we,
wall,
or whatever. We have to, you know,
right.
as community leaders, we have to look at both sides of it and try to answer those questions. But in the long range plan, I mean, is to make Sheboygan a more livable community, and this is all kind of playing into that whole philosophy. So, you know, even though you have those naysayers, after a while those naysayers slowly see it and they come around it. And now that we've, you know, rolled out a number of projects as this kind of joint partnership, that the naysayers really aren't there anymore. So I would just encourage other communities to, don't just get hung up on the first project and the
Take that
response.
step.
Keep
Take the
taking the
first
step
step,
forward
right.
and push forward for the betterment of everybody.
So
And
you created a
invite them.
culture, really. Sorry, Anne, go
Oh,
ahead.
no. I was just going to say, and invite them, because
Correct.
most times those that are most vocal, if you kind of envelope them in and have them be part of it,
You
they
just
take that
pull
sense
them
of
in,
pride.
they don't even notice.
Yeah, and then
Correct.
they're proud about what they did, and now they talk about it.
And they become your ambassadors in a
They
way,
do.
right?
Yeah.
You've listed a number of projects. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on together?
So we have a number
question.
of projects, and really just to throw the couple of key ones out there, and then I'll answer your question. But just so that the viewership knows that we've done a number of initiatives. We did a project called Sheboygan, the Sheboygan Project, which was public art on city-owned buildings. So we can talk about that. I think that's probably my most favorite project. We've also redeveloped a former Boston Store property in downtown Sheboygan, and developed that into what we call City Green, which is a public arts venue for public programming, particularly the 11 a.m. concert series that happens here on Thursday nights. And we also got a $10.5 million apartment deal out of that. And really, the developer of that will tell us that if it wasn't for this arts piece and this City Green stage kind of development, that they probably wouldn't have developed there. So, so that when you talk about economic development in the arts and the creative economy and how that all plays together, I mean, this is definitely a prime example of that. And then, last but not least, we've done some other public art projects on vacant alleys. We identified alleys in the downtown that were underutilized and brought in public art pieces in there through a partnership with the Art Center. And now we're really working on the last project that we're not quite sure what it's going to look like, because we're all in the planning stages, but in 2020 they'll be opening up a new second campus to the John Michael Kohler Art Center, known
that's
as the
exciting.
Art Preserve, and Anne can talk more about that. But when you look at it, that's probably the 5 or 6 major projects, and I think, in my opinion, the Sheboygan project was, this is one of those projects where they were bringing artists in from all over the United States, asking them, saying, here's the facade we want you to paint on, come up with a plan, and we never knew going into it as city leaders what we were going to get. We knew a little bit about what their other work looked like, but until they got there and engaged with the community and actually painted on these public places, park shelters and bridge decks and all of that kind of stuff, we didn't know what it was. And I remember telling the Common Council at one time to just embrace this, and that Ruth Kohler is behind this, and I don't think that Ruth Kohler is going to have her staff paint anything that's not going to be appropriate. But that was the extent of what we knew. So I think, when you look at going in and not knowing art, we to this day, have artists that come in that we don't really know what are we going to get and how is the public going to react to it. But those are the stories that, that's the stuff that's fun, because everybody looks at this stuff in a different way.
Anne, what about you? What's your
I do love
favorite?
the Sheboygan project. I think that's a really good one, and a lot of moments came out of there with the community, which was really fantastic. And a lot of conversations were had about, what is graffiti, what is street art, etc. So there's these key moments that were really pivotal around that time. In fact, we had a young man who had been doing graffiti and actually worked with one of the artists and learned about street art during that time. And I think that, to me, is those small moments that are so transformative. Levitt Amp has been a big one. And seeing how much at first, is a little bit daunting, and now seeing where we're at with it is pretty incredible. That on Thursday nights we have people coming out to this green space and just they're neighbors and they get to know one another, and it's just this beautiful moment where we have these free concerts happening and we're transforming the space, and people are getting to know each other that probably didn't know each other before, and yet they return every week, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So
I would say the Levitt Amp concert series has, it's very intergenerational, and it's really cool to see. So you've got all age groups from, little kids all the way up to, the older in life people that are embracing this new culture and really, this kind of, playing and celebrating together with all diversities and all different, age groups of people. So it's really nice to see how that has brought the community together and how it's
Which is
become.
what the arts are most
Right?
fundamentally about, right?
Exactly. So it's not just for one age group, and it's not for one person. We rolled out a project on City Green known as the Pearl, which was another city was a art center project of basically, and you can explain to me what the acronym stands for, but it was really, we had this envision of how do we energize this space after the concerts are over and still give people a reason to want to come there. So we did a public art project late last fall about that. So we'll be rolling out our first year with this project on City Green. So this is really, really transforming the way people look at downtown Sheboygan and where people are making their destination. And it's not only local residents, it's drawing from a regional basis. And, the economic impact analysis, there's overnight stays with it. And so it's definitely, there's more to the arts than just, what's behind the walls of a museum.
Well, and also the stage is pretty cool too, because that is Mike. So we have Pearl, and then we also have Mike.
You're going to tell us what Pearl
Okay,
is.
yeah.
Prism emitting abstract radiant light. And then you have Mike, which is music integrated kiosk environment.
Right.
And that is a public sculpture that was made with the community and up at Lakeshore Technical College. And then it's also a recording studio, and it opens up into a stage. So I think that's pretty cool too, because with the City Green that was being built, the city let us move Mike over there, and then you built the stage around that. So there's public sculpture in this space, live music. It's really it's just a really beautiful moment altogether. I know, right? It's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Wish we had the pictures. Well, let's
Right,
go on the
right.
tour.
We could,
We could
yes,
go
we
on
could go on the
tour.
tour,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Everyone should go on the tour. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So where do you see the partnership taking you next?
I think I just want to back up a little bit from a city planning perspective. So we've engaged the art into a lot of decision making that happens at the local level. So if we're going to do a corridor master plan, or we're going to do a city master plan, or we're going to do our strategic plan updates, it's always been about, now that we've built this relationship, about bringing somebody from the art center to sit on the table with us. So we're getting an arts perspective into city planning. So I think we've done a number of plans downtown, like every community does. We're engaging an innovation district and a Indiana Avenue corridor, which is a main corridor into our lakefront, and on the west side of that corridor is where this new art preserve project will be, and on the east side of the corridor is where the Blue Harbor Resort is. So this is our new planning area, and trying to understand how do we engage the arts in that kind of that corridor. So I think where do we go from here? It's about just keeping the arts on the forefront of everything we do from a city planning perspective, and it really fills in that niche of the quality of life and what people are looking for, and really utilizing resources that maybe we as community leaders don't necessarily have access to or expertise in, writing grants to National Endowment for the Arts and all that stuff, where we can look at a partner to do that for us and bring those projects to our community and do it through this partnership. So to answer your question, I'm not sure where it goes, but I know that we have a lot of additional projects in the hopper as to where we're going. So, it's just an evolving thing, and as the opportunity presents itself, the idea. I get the text message from Amy and from Anne and her colleague Amy, and and said, "What about this?" And it's like, well, let's find a place to do it. So it's really just about trying to energize spaces.
and saying yes.
Yes.
Saying
Create a
yes, and
culture of
being
yes.
open to the ideas,
Right,
right.
right.
That's one
And
of
you
the
know, I
things.
think whenever we do these presentations at any kind of conferences and stuff, the number one question is well, how do you get your elected leaders on board, on board with this? And I think in Sheboygan's case, granted we've been at it for 10 years, but I think in Sheboygan's case, our elected officials, there's no questions anymore. They see the benefit. They see what this is doing to the community. They hear from their constituents why this is important, and why it makes sense to engage the arts. And, and so that, that political piece of it really isn't there. We've got, city leadership that's on board with it and understands the value, and it's good for everybody. So it's really just making sure that it's, tastefully done, and that you're not setting the new precedent, if you will, which I've heard a lot. But you know what? Maybe the new precedent isn't all bad.
Well, change will happen no matter what. And I think the point about that it's good for everybody is key. It is not, you're not just, as you've said, it's not just serving one part of one of the community or a certain age group or whatever.
Right.
It's that everybody gets to participate, everyone gets to enjoy the art, everyone gets to come to the concert series. It is benefiting the entire community, and that's one of the really important components, the major component of it, I think.
Everybody gets to dance, basically, right? The
right.
2-year-olds and
Right.
So
the
I think,
elderly.
as we wrap up here, but maybe Anne can just talk a little bit about the Art Preserve project, which is a major project for their group and is a major project for us. And again, what I just want to say is we, the city, we saw the vision, and they had talked about building this Art Preserve in another community or somewhere else along the I-43 corridor. And city staff is the one that really, came to the table and said, we've got some land, let's look at this. So we actually sold the land to the Art Center to build the Art Preserve on. It was land that we had looked at the idea as being future office park for additional tax space, but at the time knew that there was a huge need for art, continue this art relationship. So the council agreed to sell the land, and we got
great.
you don't always have the tax dollars there with nonprofits, but we worked through that piece, and it was in the end I think it's going to be a win-win for both of us. So Anne can tell you a little bit more about that.
Right, so the Art Preserve will house all of the art centers in collections. And we have a niche of having artist environment builders, which artists who have transformed their whole world is their art environment. And so we have over 13 sites that are these artists' homes. That is their life, their work, their sculptures. So Mary Knoll, Dr. Charles Smith, Nick Chan. And unfortunately, right now, they're not out on view because there's so much of it that you have to protect it, of course, and it can't be out for view. So unfortunately, they're in warehouses throughout the city and kind of hidden in nooks and crannies, right? So we're excited because we purchased this land, and it's just outside of Sheboygan in beautiful environment, and the Art Preserve will now house all these collections and be open that people can go see it in visible storage, so people can really interact with the work and see it. Scholars from all over the world can come and see it. So it's very exciting, and it connects along the Indiana corridor, as Chad's saying. So a big project that we're taking on for the next 2 years is another Connecting Communities project, in which we're bringing in 4 artists along the Indiana corridor. They will have different pop-up events. They'll be having conversations, art making, and by 2020, the summer of 2020, we will have 4 public art pieces that will happen between the Indiana corridor out to the Art Preserve. So that's our big project with all of that. So just giving that big ripple effect up there.
So when does the Art Preserve open?
The Art Preserve opens August 2020. It's the last weekend in August. Yep.
No pressure.
Big party. Everybody's out there. We're gonna whoop it up.
That is a deadline.
So it's very exciting.
Sheboygan County also hosts the Ryder Cup in
yes,
2020
right.
in September of 2020.
You guys have a lot going on.
So we'll
It's
have a
gotta
lot
be
of
done.
excitement happening in this
Right,
area.
right.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is the place to be.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the Levitt Amp will continue as well. We received 3-year grant for that, so we'll be going with that too. So, yeah.
And you've talked about connecting communities a couple of times. Can you elaborate just for a few minutes on that?
Sure. So Connecting Communities is a partnership that the Art Center has, in which we commission artists all over the world to come in and work with the community. We have 16 community partners that we regularly speak with or meet with and have meals with and find out what's happening in our community.
And what are those partners? I mean, what kinds of organizations?
Oh, sure. There's Safe Harbor, which is the domestic abuse shelter, the MUN Mutual Assistance Association. There's churches, the city, schools, etc. And so we meet with them on a regular basis and kind of get the pulse of what's happening in the community and how can the arts be a part of that and help heal and help transform and make our community healthy. So we do different projects with that, and lately it's been more about the public art projects that we can do with the community in different areas of our community. And it started back in the 90s when, so we were approached by the MUN Mutual Assistance Association, the Hispanic community, and the city, asking if there was a way to have everybody come together under a neutral form, and thus the arts, and they came together and created a piece together. And so we've been doing that since then. So,
That's excellent.
Yeah.
So thank you both for coming and telling us more about your projects, and I think being inspirational for everyone out there in Wisconsin who's watching this program. This has been The Local Perspective. I'm Gail Sumi, the Communications Director for the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, here with Anne Katz from Arts Wisconsin, Anne Brusky from John Michael Kohler Arts Center, and Chad Pelishek, the Director of Development for the City of Sheboygan. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.